Doors closing.
House is the founding building for the Financial Times newspaper. It's a bit odd. It has this strange astrological clock with what looks like an angry baby, but is in fact Winston Churchill in the centre, and he's playing the sun, so that's a bit suspicious. Bracken House is number 10 Cannon Street. There's a few things that I have noticed that I wanted to share with you today on this video, which could just be coincidence. Are you a coincidence theorist? Now, quite recently, our Prime Minister, Theresa May, has mentioned that in a post-Brexit world and in a Donald Trump world, globalism, if it wants to be successful, has to be done in a different way, and that Britain is in the perfect situation to lead in a new form of globalism. Now, of course, what she means is that Britain has a lot of experience in using soft power in the place of hard power. Hard power, as it was shown with the British Empire, just simply ceased to function because of pesky people wanting a thing called human rights. So what you really need to do is you need to nudge them, study them, to work out how to get what you want without having to show your weapons, without having to hit them with swords or shoot cannons at them. Soft power. And I think the number 10 is actually the symbol for soft power. The Financial Times is known to be quite an influential newspaper to some of the big, high-up, big-wig elites, the big banks in the City of London, big financial institutions. But it doesn't tell them what to do. It just has the most influential page in any financial newspaper, which is called the Lex, the back page of the Financial Times. And they boast of about how many high-up people are influenced by the Lex column. It's quite windy. So quite apt, I think, that the founding building for that influential paper is number 10. So I'm going to go around today and show you a few more influential soft power institutions wielding the signifier of their purpose. Let's start with the most obvious one. So number 10 Downing Street is of course the most obvious one. Never really thought about how on Downing Street everything is black and white. It's one of the other sort of things about the number 10 is it's a symbol of plus and minus, sort of polarity, black and white, and that's what's going on down there, but also what is going on here. I'm a bit sad because I wanted to do a time lapse of the rotating sign of New Scotland Yard, but it's covered in scaffold. So sad. So, New Scotland Yard, the Metropolitan Police Force, founded by Sir Robert Peel back in the 1820s, and one of the Peelian principles of policing is that the use of force is a symptom of failure in policing. So it was really founded as an institution of soft power, coercion and influence, not necessarily of beating people up, although they do a lot of that. But Scotland Yard, even though it's covered in scaffold, no rotating sign, so sad, the address is number 10 Broadway. Right next to Scotland Yard is Caxton Street. And Caxton Street is where, through the 1900s, the elite of high society would come to have their minds changed on various political issues. Caxton Hall, number 10, Caxton Street, is where the big speeches for the women's movement in politics, the suffragettes, used to be held. And in the Second World War, Caxton Hall was the Ministry of Information. It's where Winston Churchill and Brendan Bracken would tell people and influence people on the importance of, I don't know, keeping quiet about stuff, censorship, that sort of thing. It's also where Aleister Crowley used to do various weird things back in the very early 1900s. Caxton Hall. In terms of influencing behaviour, changing behaviour, I think one institution probably does that more with the data it releases than any other, and that is the London Stock Exchange, which is this building behind me. And the London Stock Exchange is number 10 Paternoster Square. Power and protection is one of the definitions in numerology for the number 10, and power and control in return for protection is basically the dictionary definition of feudalism. A lot of people would say that feudalism is dead, it's gone, it doesn't exist anymore, but quite controversially, in England, feudalism still exists. There is one last refuge for feudalism, and it's the Duchy of Cornwall, and that's the way that the heir to the throne, Prince Charles, gets his income each year. And the Duchy of Cornwall is right next to Buckingham Palace at, there's a bus just drives in the way. Get out of the way. Number 10, Buckingham Gate. The British Council is an institution I've talked about quite a lot in the past. The British Council was essentially created to push forward the British global project using soft power, because they were aware that hard power no longer worked. And the British Council, essentially the British Global Propaganda Institution, is number 10, Spring Gardens. And there's another, more senior institution just around the corner that has always been doing a similar thing. You may recognise that building from the television series Sherlock, because in Sherlock, that is the Diogenes Club, where you're not allowed to speak, and Arthur Conan Doyle apparently said that the Diogenes Club was a fictional recreation of essentially a traditional kind of front to the British Secret Service. So does that have any reference to the British Academy? Certainly the British Academy, opened up by this guy, by the way, Edward VII. The British Academy was, one of the main things they do nowadays is the pushing forward of research in social sciences to be able to tackle global problems. There's a British institution to work on globalism using soft power, although when it was first founded in its early days, it was essentially just so that they had a seat in various other European institutions, so they made sure they could have their two penneth worth and influence the goings on in other countries. St James's Square, I've always thought, is sort of the hotbed of the dark state. Lots of organisations who work behind the scenes, not so much covertly, but just far enough away from the centre of the action to not be noticed by ordinary folk. One of the main heads of the old imperial global business system that Britain used to run was a man called Cecil Rhodes, and you're probably aware that when he died he left a lot of his money to form a secret society known as the Round Table, or the Milner Group, who when they wanted to be more active and more official in their involvement and meddling in British global affairs, they formed Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which is here, and you'll never guess what number they are in St James's Square. To top it off, the building I featured originally in the film about occult things in London, number 10, Duke Street, St James's, the Supreme World Council of 33rd Degree Freemasonry, which, put it this way, this is sort of the reverse of some of the other institutions. This is where the high up of world Freemasonry come to Britain to be influenced, and a lot of the people who meet there, like the modern styling of the Order of the Knights Templar, for example, they can join with the UN in a role where they advise on social and economic affairs on a global level. Suspicious at all? So there we go. 10 number 10s that all seem to have certain characteristics in common. They're all based upon soft power and control and influence upon the minds of people. And you could say that, there's a number 10 on every street. You look hard enough, you're going to find a pattern in everything. Which is true, I suppose, but I don't know. There seems to be something esoteric involved in all of these number 10s. So, is it a coincidence? Are you a coincidence theorist?